Hey everybody, thank you so much for joining me. I am so excited to talk to you about client screening and onboarding. I get super excited about this stuff, so it's one of my favorite topics. Now I do want to give you a heads up if you haven't been told already, this is pre-recorded. The time I'm recording this, I am 8.5 months pregnant, and so the time that this will be airing, I will be full term. Baby might be coming, baby might be here, I don't know, so I figured that pre-recording this was the safest option. Now, if you have any questions, if I'm able to attend live, I will be in the chat hanging out with you. If I'm not there, it means that I'm probably a little occupied, either having a baby or with a newborn, in which case at the end of this presentation, I will give you my Twitter. You can tweet at me and I will get back to you whenever I have had enough sleep to form a coherent sentence on Twitter. So let's go ahead and dive in because I've got a lot to cover in a very short period of time, and I want to make sure that we get to everything. All right, so welcome to How to Map Your Client Onboarding. We're also talking about client screening, but that was a really long title. So first of all, I want you to think about how do you feel when you get lost? So let's imagine the last time you're driving in your car and your GPS is not working and you're trying to meet up with someone, at a specific time, and you're trying to find this location for wherever they are, but your GPS is not cooperating. And so you're like, oh my gosh, and now I have to look for street signs and it's gotta be around here somewhere, but my GPS is just hopping me all over the place. And Shakira, I gotta turn down the radio so that I can read the street signs better. And I need you to stop singing right now. Where am I going, right? And then you start getting antsy and angry. And by the time you actually get to where you're going, you feel frazzled and frustrated, right? It's not a good feeling, but unfortunately, that's the feeling we're giving our clients when we have a really poor screening and onboarding process. And when we start a project that way, it's really, really hard to recover because we've started off on entirely the wrong foot. And so it's going to be an uphill battle every single time, that we are interacting with our clients because we've already given them this bad taste. We've already gotten them frustrated and annoyed and feeling like this project's going to be a mess. So it's very, very, very important that we have a great client screening and onboarding process. So I'll move myself a little bit. This is my 10-step client screening and onboarding process. Now, I want to make it clear, every business is unique, so yours might be a little bit different, but every business needs a client onboarding process. So while these steps may vary, while yours may look somewhat different than this, it's really important that you take the time to map out your client onboarding process so that you are able to weed out problem clients before they become problems, before you sign a contract and are committed to a project with them, and that you set expectations for the project because that's going to let your potential clients know that you are the right fit for them and what to expect as they go. So today we're going to cover, again, my 10-step client screening and onboarding process, which you can adapt to your own business. So I fully expect you to tweak this and change it a little bit, but we're going to cover the website, the inquiry form, your intro packet, the discovery call, the proposal, the contract, the payment, the welcome packet, the project management system, and client homework in about 30 minutes. So we're going to move pretty quickly. Again, I will give you a download link for these slides so that you can, go back through this at any time that you want, but also get a pen and paper because I want you to think about how your process is going to go. So number one is your website. Oh, by the way, these photos are all taken in Aspen or around Aspen by either me or my husband, and we are not professional photographers. It's just this gorgeous here. So I hope that you enjoy these photos because, oh my gosh, if you ever have the chance to visit Aspen, let me know because it is such a cool, cool place. All right. So your website is a really important part of your client screening process. So as soon as a potential client lands on your website, she should immediately know what you do. like right away. It should not be a question. Do not make your potential clients click around to find out what you do and who you work with. You want them to know immediately so that if they are not the right fit, they go somewhere else. And if they are the right fit, they get really excited about working with you because they know that they're in the right place. Your portfolio should reinforce who you work with and the types of projects that you work on. So this is another kind of self-qualifying step for your potential clients. So you don't want to have any projects in your portfolio, and I'm willing to bet if it's like mine, it needs updating, but you don't want to have any projects in your portfolio that do not match the types of projects that you want to take on at this point. So for example, if you have done e-commerce sites in the past and you decide that you don't like to do e-commerce anymore, take them out of your portfolio, because when someone visits, they're going to say, oh, well, she does e-commerce sites. I want an e-commerce site. I'm going to hire her. And then you're going to get more e-commerce sites. Or they're going to go, oh, well, she does e-commerce sites and I don't want an e-commerce site. I want a brochure site. And she probably doesn't, really want to work with somebody like me. And then they're going to leave. So you need to make sure that your portfolio is portraying the types of projects that you want and who you work with. So think of your website, not just your portfolio, but your entire website, as a carefully curated collection designed to attract a very, very specific client and to kind of repel everybody else. You don't want people who are, interested in hiring you for a project that you don't want to do, right? So you cannot appeal to everyone. You absolutely can't, as much as we might try. So you need to niche down. If you haven't niched down, you definitely should. That would be a presentation for another day. But niching down will help you attract the kind of clients that you want to work with. And it will help kind of like get rid of those clients who you don't want to work with without you having to do anything. The next step is the initial inquiry. So when a potential client makes it to your inquiry form, they're probably pretty serious about working with you. They're at least, serious enough to take the time to fill out a form. But the mistake that a lot of people make, especially web designers, is making the form way too long and asking way too many questions before this client is ready, that serious about working with you. You do not want to scare potential clients off with a contact form that takes an hour to fill out. You only do these super crazy long forms if you are very, very in demand and you're getting too many inquiries and you really want to weed out everybody except like the very, very, very cream of the crop, right? So if you're super in demand, you can get away with a really long form. If you are struggling to get clients, the form needs to be as easy as possible to fill out. And if you're somewhere in the middle, the form should be somewhere in the middle. So what you want to do is you want to make sure that your form collects enough information that you are able to judge whether the project is potentially a good fit or not. So this should roughly take 3 to 5 minutes to fill out. I found that this is kind of a sweet spot where you ask enough questions and you get enough information where somebody has to actually sit down and take a little bit of time, but it's not so much time that they're like, oh my gosh, I have to set aside a whole hour to fill out this form, because that's too much, at least for most of us. So what you want is that little sweet spot where you are asking enough to get the information that you need, but not so much that you are sending every client packing before they even fill out a form. So you're going to narrow down your contact form to the questions that you really, really need to know that are actually going to make a difference in determining whether the project is a good fit for you or not. So you'll put your most important qualifying questions on the form. So for many of us, this could be things like the type of service that the client wants. So, if we're talking about websites, whether they're looking for a brochure site or an e-commerce site, or maybe a course site, right? What kind of project specifically? A rough budget for the project. And if we have a project minimum, we should say what that is, that, people who have a $500 budget, when we have a $5,000 project minimum, don't waste their time filling out the form. 1 to 2 examples of what the client is looking for. This can be really, really helpful, especially for web designers to kind of scope out and see kind of the tech that might be involved in a project. a short description of what the client wants. So ask them, because this is also going to be them using their words to explain what they want, which is going to cue you into any communication problems. Like if they don't know any terminology at all about websites, this will kind of like help you figure that out, in which case you can decide, if this is a good project for you or not. For some of us, that might be a deal breaker. For others, we'll be like, okay, like that's totally fine. They don't know, what course platform they're talking about, or like what the header's called or anything. So that's totally fine, but you go into it with your eyes wide open so you're not surprised. So what this does is that this gives us an idea, especially like looking at how the client specifically talks about things, into how the communication will be throughout the project. And if they don't fill this out well, if they don't, seem to take enough time or care filling out this inquiry form, that's a red flag that we kind of goes up and we go, okay, this might be a problem. Does this person seem like they're going to be a good fit, or that we're going to have communication problems throughout the entire project, or that they just don't care? Maybe they're just like throwing inquiries into lots of designers everywhere. So pay attention to how well your client fills out your inquiry form. All right, the intro packet. Take a little sip here. I'm using, if you guys can see, a Yeti tumbler so that we can pretend that we're out camping. Not sponsored. All right. So the intro packet. So you get the initial inquiry, and then next up you get you send them an intro packet if they seem like they're a good fit. Now, if you get an initial inquiry and it seems like they're a bad fit, you might want to pass them on to somebody else. But if what they filled out seems good, then the intro packet is a great tool for screening clients. It is one of my favorite tools for screening clients. So what an intro packet does is it's going to let clients know what working with you would be like, and it's going to help set those client expectations that are going to help them not feel lost, like they've got to turn down Shakira and look for those street signs to try and figure out where they're going. So an intro packet does the following. It gives potential clients a rough overview of the project and what to expect throughout. It lets potential clients know what you need from them and when. So for example, if you need content before building a website, it's going to give them a heads up that that's something they have to get together. It's going to let potential clients know when and how they can contact you, which is really important, especially for those of us who maybe don't work normal hours. It gives potential clients a rough timeline of the project, so they're not surprised, if they're expecting a website in 2 days, but it's going to take 2 months based on how you work, right? It's going to give them that heads up too. It's going to inform potential clients of your major policies, because you can never, ever, ever tell someone the big stuff too many times. It's going to let them know before they ever become a client what your major policies are. So these might be things like, how payments are expected or things like that, so that they can plan appropriately. And it's going to keep you from having to answer the same questions over and over and over and over again, because most likely, every time you get an inquiry, you have a lot of back and forth. This is going to help with reducing that back and forth. So if a potential client agrees to what's outlined in an intro packet, they're likely a really good fit for working with you. And they're going to be pleased with how organized you are and how you've explained everything. They're going to know what will happen during the project, and they're going to feel at ease instead of anxious. Now, if they're a bad fit, the intro packet is probably going to weed them out. They're going to be like, nope, not the right person for me. And that's it. You guys haven't wasted any time together. So the intro packet is an excellent, excellent tool for sending potential clients to either get them excited about working with you, or get them, kind of like out of your hair and on to somebody else before either of you waste time on something that's never going to be the right fit. The next step is the discovery call. So any type of call, but I think preferably a video call where you can actually see your potential client, is a really, really important part of the process. So while during the project, you might choose to communicate via email or a project management system, A video call is really going to let you get a feel for the other person that written communication just can't do. So if you do not click on the video call, something might be wrong. When a client is not as excited or as interested as you are, it could be a red flag that the project's just not going to be the right fit. Now, I do want to make it clear, it is not necessary for you to be besties with all of your clients. You don't have to, make each other friendship bracelets and braid each other's hair. But you do need to get along, especially because a lot of web design type projects can end up taking months, right? So you have to get along with your clients. Now, you want to make sure, again, to use your discovery call to clarify what you will be doing and to reiterate your process, because guess what? People need to hear things multiple times. And you're also going to want to answer any questions that your potential client has about working with you. So you're interviewing them, they're kind of interviewing you. You're going to want to go over their project again just to make sure that you're on the same page about what exactly is being asked for. And one of the great things about video calls, if you do it on something like Zoom or Google Hangouts or whatever, you can share screens. And so that means if something's unclear or you want to, pull up an example of a similar website or project, you can do that to make sure that you are both on the same page about what you're talking about. Now, you can and should have an outline of questions to ask that will keep the call on track and to make sure that you and the client are a great fit. So kind of some screening calls. This is also going to help reduce the stress factor of hopping on a call with someone you don't know, which if you're an introvert like me, hopping on a call with a stranger is terrifying. But when you have it all outlined, it really makes it much, much easier. So at the end of a discovery call, you and the client should both leave feeling good about working together, that all of your questions were answered. And if not, then you're probably not the right fit. Next up is the proposal. So at this point, assuming the discovery call went good, you would send a proposal. Now, if the discovery call did not go well, then you probably are going to refer the client to somebody else or make a suggestion for another solution. But if the call went well and you're excited to work together, you need to make an official proposal. So there are a lot of ways to make a proposal, and the exact format is going to be up to you, but I believe that all proposals should include the following. They should have an overview of the goal of the project and how you will help your client achieve this goal. They should have a rough timeline for the project, a scope of work outlining what you're going to do, an estimated price based on the scope of work. So here's the key word here. The key word is estimate. If the client changes her mind or adds something, you can adjust the price accordingly. But the proposal is there to let the client know what you'll be doing specifically for her project, roughly how long it will take, and what it will cost based on your previous conversations, which again is going to help with the antsy feeling and the where is that street sign type deal, right? So it's going to help set your clients at ease because this is kind of custom to them, as opposed to, everything else that we've done before, which is more templated for everybody. But the proposal is also going to give you a document to fall back to if the client drastically changes her mind about what she wants, which is going to give you the option of either requoting, because guess what? It's an estimate. It's not a full on, this is what it's going to cost, period. If something changes, you have the right to charge more. Or it's going to give you the option of either requoting or backing out of the project if, they decide to add something totally crazy that is outside of either what you can provide or want to provide. So the proposal is a document that's very, very important because it's setting up the expectations of the project specific to that client. But again, remember, it's an estimate and it is not the only thing, things can change in the future if you allow them to, which we're going to talk a little bit about that too. Because the next part is the contract. Now, you should never, ever, ever skip the contract. Now, I'm not a lawyer, but I recommend never working without a contract, whether it's, for your best friend or your grandma, doesn't matter, have a contract. The client is not officially a client unless they have a signed contract with you. So the proposal kind of, set out the estimate of what things are going to be. And then the contract is a legally binding document that says you're going to do what you're going to do and the client's going to do what they're going to do. And if anybody violates it, there are going to be penalties or cancellations. And again, I'm not a lawyer, but if you don't have a contract, I have a really great recommendation for you. Check out Nathan Ingram's Monster Contracts at monstercontracts.com. I'll have this link also at the end of this presentation because it specifically helps with WordPress and web design. But this is so important. The contract is something that is actually legally binding and should not change unless agreed upon by both parties, and then you do an amendment and all sorts of things. So make sure you have one. I wish I was a lawyer and I would go more in depth here, but again, I'm not. So I'm just going to tell you to have one and to check out Nathan Ingram's Monster Contracts if you do not. All right, the next step is payment. So you should not start work until you've gotten an initial payment. So how you choose to split up this payment is going to be up to you, or it may depend, on the size of the project, how you decide to do this. But many web designers or other creative entrepreneurs do a 50-50 split. So what that means is 50% due at contract signing and 50% due at project completion. But you can also charge the remaining 50% after a certain time period. So say after 30 days, which I think is much better because it prevents clients from delaying projects. So instead of saying, okay, you're going to give, let's say it's a $5,000 project. So saying you're going to give me $2,500 when we sign, and then you're going to give me $2,500 right before the website launches or right after the website launches, you instead get that other $2,500 after 30 days or 60 days or whatever you decide, which means that the client can't hold up something like the website launch and hold your money hostage. So I find having it based on dates is much better. So bill based on date, not on deliverable. Now, personally, for projects over $10,000, I typically do a 25% split. But how you do your payments is kind of totally up to you. Just make sure that your clients know what they are, and they should know this in advance. So this is something that you should be putting in your intro packet for potential clients to read about, because if they need to, come up with a couple $1,000s, they need to know that in advance so they can plan their budgets accordingly. But make sure you get your payments to secure the project and ensure that you get paid, and then make sure that you get paid regularly throughout the project so that you're not doing work and then the client disappears and you've done all of this work but not gotten paid for it, because believe me, that is not a fun place to be. The next step is the welcome packet. And you might be saying, Erin, I already sent a welcome packet, but no, we did not. An intro packet is what we talked about before. A welcome packet is an entirely different thing. So the intro packet was for potential clients and letting them know what to expect, and to weed out people who would not agree with how you worked or your policies and how your process would go. The welcome packet is for people who are paying clients, and it's going to go into the nitty-gritty details of how the project's going to work. And again, we do not want our clients to feel lost. So your welcome packet should include those nitty-gritty details that would be too much for a potential client. They don't need to know every single thing right away. But when they become a client, they need to know how to do things like how to use your project management system. They need to know how to give feedback during a project. They need to know how to schedule a call with you. They need to know how to do things like send text, image, or other files. They probably need a reminder about your office hours and your response times. And they also need to know what their expected response times are during the project. So when you give them something to give feedback on, what are they expected to do? Are they supposed to give you feedback the same day, within 3 days? How is that going to work? So you need to outline those kinds of details for your actual clients. So giving your clients a welcome packet is going to let them feel in control, It's going to inform them about the proper way to send you things or get in touch. And it's going to help alleviate their concern when they don't hear from you like over the weekend, right? They're not going to be like, oh, why did she not get back to me, immediately on a Saturday morning, right? So it's going to give them those kinds of details that they need during the project. The next step is a PMS or project management system. So you should definitely use a project management system. It will make your life like a million times easier. I love them. So it will help you keep all of your projects organized. It will remind clients when they have tasks due, like giving feedback or supplying content. And it will keep you both from digging through your inboxes like for hours trying to find missing files or discussions. It just keeps things so much more organized. So inside a project management system, you can have threaded discussions, kind of like a forum. You can assign tasks with due dates for yourself and your clients. You can upload project files and have your clients, give you files that way too. You can track your time. You can keep track of what is being worked on and whether things are on schedule, and a whole lot more. So if you are not using one already, I highly recommend you do. A few popular ones with my students are WordCamp, which is my favorite, and Asana. And again, I will mention these at the end of this presentation so that you can find them. But project management systems are life-changing. If you are not using one currently, I highly recommend it. Number 10 is your client homework. So this might be an in-depth questionnaire, or it might be other types of homework, but this is the part where your client sits down and they go really deep into what they want. So this might take them a couple hours for them to complete, maybe even a couple days, depending on, exactly what you need from them, which is why we don't ask for this up front, okay? We don't make them do this as a potential client. We only make them do this once they're actually a client. So depending on the project and what you do, the homework questions may vary, but you probably are going to have something like this. What's the main goal of the project? Maybe create a Pinterest inspiration board with images that represent your brand and the feeling you want to create on your website. What's the primary feeling you want visitors to have when they're on your website? 3 to 5 websites or copy examples that you love and explain what you like about them. Who do you consider your biggest competition and why? Who do you wish was your competition? And the point of this in-depth questionnaire or client homework is so that you can strategically create the best product possible for your client and know exactly where she wants to be positioned in her market. So your job as a creative entrepreneur is to help your client achieve their goals. So you want to make sure that you are asking great questions that will help you make the best project possible for your client. All right, so this was my 10-step client screening and onboarding process. I want to know what your process is. I would love it if you outlined it and tweeted it at me. That would be awesome. And I will get back to you as soon as I possibly can. But this was my process. And again, I'm going to give you the link to the slides right now. But keep in mind that this is really important. You want to avoid that lost feeling. So you want to help potential clients determine if you're the right fit for them, as much as you want to help yourself decide if they're the right fit for you. Clients are going to self-screen through this, and then you're going to weed out all the bad fit clients, or they're going to weed themselves out. And then the great clients, the ones who are the right fit, are going to be so excited to work with you. You're going to end up with great clients, and your clients will end up with a great web designer for them. All right, thank you so much for joining me today. You can download the slides at erinflynn.com/WCDen2020. If you want to create your own intro packet, that would be kind of the next step in this. I have a free training for you on that at erinflynn.com/SDP lesson. And some resources that I've mentioned during this that you should check out are monstercontracts.com, freedcamp.com, and asana.com, which Freedcamp and Asana are both project management systems. If you want to take a client screening quiz, that's kind of fun. I have that at erinflynn.com/client-screening-quiz. And you can find me online at erinflynn.com or on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, all the things at Erin3Flynn. And again, I would love it if you would share your client screening and onboarding process with me on Twitter. That would be awesome. All right, thank you so much for tuning in. I hope you enjoyed this, and I hope that you have a clear plan to map your own client onboarding process.